I have a video of Michael Irvin that we're. Shit. Fuck. Pain. Ow. That hurt. Damn. Fucking wind. Ow.
Well, good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here. Joe Boo is at the Red Brick House holding it down, but we got Joe Bear. As always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. We're already open for business here, and the football gods are already awake. And make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It definitely helps us to continue to grow. We are at 100 and almost 29,000 subscribers. Oh my goodness, we're closing in on 130,000. Shout out to all of you guys. Maybe some of our Cowboy fans, faithful, are coming back now that the season is upon us. Now, a couple of things this morning. You know, I'm so blessed to be able to do this. I'm so blessed to have you guys and to start my day out, and you know, we can go through and what I try and do here is I try to look from different angles than what you may see. It seems like more times than not, it's sometimes I listen to things that go on ESPN, and I'm like, do they really understand the Cowboys? You know, when I've heard people say, well, Dak Prescott's numbers is 60 million this year. And it's like, no, it's not. It's 55. I actually heard somebody say, well, you know, this is what Mike McCarthy, you know, he's been there, 2 years? This is his third year. It's like, no, this is his fifth year. How do you not know? Because they were talking about, well, they've had 3 years of 12-5 in a row. And they're like, you know, this is what, Mike McCarthy's third year? It's like, bro, he was here in 2020 when we lost Dak Prescott. He came in after Jason Garrett was fired in 2019. And so you guys, I get it if I make a mistake, you know, because I don't have research people and makeup people and lighting people and, you know, people that shoot the cameras, where all the thing I have to do is sit down and talk. And I usually get handed a piece of paper to tell me what to talk about. That's your one job. Here, as being a YouTuber, I got to do all. I got to make the coffee in the morning. I got to come down here, do my research, and figure out what I'm going to talk about. You know, I got to fire up the computers. I got to turn on the lights. What's that? Deshaun Watson? No. What's? Tom Grossi. That's it. Yeah, and the reason why the lights are on here, because I don't have somebody put up a sign that says, oh, you know, what I missed. I started doing my video at first because I was talking about how blessed I am of having 130,000 subscribers. And then I was talking about Tom Grossi. Tom Grossi, I think, is in New York State and has been doing YouTube for 10 years. He's bought a house in Wisconsin. And I was watching his video announcing this and stuff, and he went through the whole diatribe of all the stuff that he's done in that house during his time. And I can say everything I've done, if you've been watching the Joe Boo Sports Report for the 8 years, has been here in this house. I started my studio set right there, you know, moving it over here and then the outdoor studio, but everything has been done right here. When I sell this house, maybe I'll be like Tom Grossi too, because it'll be hard to say goodbye, because this is where everything happened. But, you know, I am getting older, and at some point I will retire and probably move out and get out of this rat race of Northern Virginia and the high prices. Be that as it may, his goal is, and it just blows my mind away. In his set, he has his play button over here, and he said he left this other side blank because he was looking to put that 1 million button over there. So his goal is by the end of the season to get that 1 million subscriber. So before he leaves the house there, it's done. That's just really cool. That's really cool. I would say something like that, but I'm a million. Shit, that's nowhere close. But one of the things I like to do here is I like to think outside of the box and give you guys something different than what you always get with the same old rehashed, you know, NBC, Fox Sports and ESPN and all those things. I like to try and get different angles of stuff and put things together. So while I was doing my coffee this morning, it came across that Deshaun Watson, that they restructured Deshaun Watson's deal. and freeing up $35 million in cap space. Okay, so that's the first thing. They already had $15 million in cap space, so they don't really need that for this year, I don't think, unless you're making moves. So then I started thinking, okay, so now they've got 50-some million in cap space. Maybe they're looking at getting Brandon Ayuk, and they could be, because maybe they make a trade for it. Don't know if that's the case, but now I'm actually having second thoughts, because here's where the Cowboys get a lot of shit. Excuse me. The Cowboys get a lot of shit about how they handle contracts and money and things like that, right? And they keep saying they don't want to get into cap hell. As I was looking this morning at the Cleveland Browns, here's what I found out. And this is, well, no, it's not We Them Boys. We the Boys, true. But I started looking at the Cleveland Browns situation because I was trying to figure out, why are they freeing up $35 million using Deshaun Watson? Because he's still owed $190 million over the next 3 years. See, people don't talk about Dak Prescott. Don't talk about Deshaun Watson, who wasn't a runner-up MVP. He's played 12 games in the last 2 seasons and has 14 TDs and 9 interceptions, and is fully guaranteed for his $190 million. So to me, taking that 63 and getting yourself an additional $35 million in cap space didn't make any sense. So now they have about $50 million in cap space right now. I double checked on the rollover, because somebody had said that you can only roll over $20 million, but I didn't think that was correct. You can roll over 100% of the money that's left over, but you must spend 89% of the cap money over 4 years. So you could have $100 million and roll it over to the next year, but you have to use up 89% of your cap money over a 4-year period. So looking at that, it's interesting because I saw $15 million for this year. I said, okay, they're in pretty good shape. But then you go to the following year, they're $57 million in the red for next year. And then even in 2026, they're $12 million in the red. To put that in perspective, the Cowboys at the moment have about $35 million in cap space. And they now have the triggers for CeeDee Lamb's contract. See, here's where I was wondering, okay, it's like Cowboys ended up basically making the first year real team friendly. We got $20 million. We can roll that over. So we can use that money, if we don't spend it, on other players and stuff. But they then turned around and made his salary like $26 million the next year and the next year and stuff like that. Those are the triggers that, if they want to get cap relief, they can go ahead and take that $26 million and convert it into money for next year. So in essence, the Cowboys literally could go through, roll over the $20 million if they don't spend it. We're at 21 right now, and have $55 million. This is before Dak Prescott's. And then if they needed more money from CeeDee Lamb's contract, they could basically borrow it and add to that. So you're already talking about 55. You could get to easily $75 million in cap money next year to take care of Micah Parsons and Tyler Smith and so on, if you follow what I'm saying there. The Cowboys are actually in a good contract situation to make moves. And so you go back to the Cleveland Browns, their reasoning why they did that. They haven't gotten the breakdown. We don't know if they put that money in like a voidable year just to kick it way down the road. But basically, they're going to have to take the money that they have now to roll over just to get to zero for next year. So that's the thing that Jerry Jones is trying to say, it's complex and things like that. So maybe I have to actually applaud the Cowboys at the moment for actually doing the deal the way they did. When you see how bad that's going to look. And the Eagles have a similar situation too. Yes, they have all their guys signed, but there's a point where all of those things, contracts, are going to mesh together, where if those guys aren't still good players and on the team, it's going to blow up and they're going to have to blow up all these contracts. If it ends up being that Jalen Hurts isn't the guy, then they're going to end up taking the big CAC hits because they kicked that money down the road. But who knows? The one thing we do know is the salary cap is going to blow up like crazy. Now, here is where I'm going to go to ESPN a little early today, because this has Jerry Jones and he's talking about Dak Prescott and things. And to me, I feel like there is a shift in the Cowboys, that they are changing their tune a little bit. They're looking differently, or maybe, Jerry's trying to soften up Dak to get this contract done. But I think Jerry Jones is looking inside and looking holistically at all of the problems that they have as far as this team not being successful. Let's go to the tape.
$136 million was the extension, making him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Then, yesterday, Dallas signing Dalvin Cook to the practice squad. The 29-year-old spent last season with the Jets and the Ravens after making 4 straight Pro Bowls with Minnesota. And then, of course, there is the specter of Dak Prescott's contract looming over everything. He's in his final year, hits true free agency in March. And yesterday, Jerry Jones was asked about the quarterback. He had a lot to say.
Well, you could easily say, if you hadn't seen it by now, you haven't seen it. The Dak's situation right now, for me, from my mirror, has more to do with our situation than it does with the merits of Dak Prescott being quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. I've quit a long time ago getting bent out of shape about having anybody under contract or not. And there's all kinds of other things other than a contract that could change the outcome of him being under contract. Injury, level of play. So you can't just pick that and say, that should give you a better feeling about our team or me a better feeling about it. The whole thing has a lot of moving parts. Now, I can live with that. Everything you do, almost, there's risk involved. That's the nature of the game. Sometimes it's worked out really well. Sometimes taking those risks will bite you.
Sometimes those risks will bite you.
Does anyone have any idea?
Sometimes those risks will bite you. Here's my question.
Yeah.
Jerry believes in his heart that Dak will be back, right? Like, I think he's negotiating from a place of like, yeah, I'm hopeful, I'm confident. My thing is, what owner is willing to risk losing his franchise guy? Like, risk, I think we are risk averse in football. If we have a franchise guy, our star players, we don't want to even open the door a smidge for them to walk out. And I know the old saying, it's if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it's yours. Yeah, beautiful, right? That sounds like great. Mm-hmm. Not in football. Not in football. You do not risk that. I don't understand this.
Here's what he's counting on. He's counting on the fact that there has never been, and he is hoping will never be, anything more valuable than being a former quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys. No one ever leaves there. And if you look at what happens to them, Roger Staubach is a billionaire. Troy Aikman and Tony Romo are the stars of 2 of the 4 big, they're 2 of the 4 top analysts in all of the sport. And Dak Prescott figures to then follow in those footsteps. He has a long and storied career. I mean, Romo didn't even win, candidly didn't win almost anything in Dallas, and yet is still, we all saw how and see how it has gone from there. So that's what he's counting on. He's counting on the fact that nobody ever leaves there.
Oof.
Greeny.
Yeah.
How many of those guys had the leverage that Dak Prescott has?
No one has ever had the leverage.
No one has ever had it. And here, my thing is this, like, what incentive does Dak Prescott have to sign a contract right now? He has none. He has none. Literally, this is unprecedented. The fact that Dak Prescott's literally months.
All right. Here's my thought. Okay. Here's my thought. Just hear me out here. Because as they say, if your whole goal is solely about the money, yes, there is no reason to sign a contract now. You could look at it from the standpoint of, the Cleveland Browns signed Deshaun Watson to that fully guaranteed $230 million contract. and all they've gotten out of it is 2,700 yards and 14 TDs and 9 interceptions. That's all they've gotten. We've seen guys get traded left and right, bringing them in, paying them a boatload of money. You know, Carson Wentz going to the Colts and to Washington, getting a whole bunch of money and not doing anything. Cowboy fans are so, let's just move on from this guy. Let's just start over. Not realizing, in my mind, this is a conversation I had last night with Drew, the resident Eagle, on Game Time Brian's membership chat. What would the Cowboys be had they not had Dak Prescott these years? What if the Cowboys had drafted Johnny Manziel? What if the Cowboys had gotten Paxton Lynch or Connor Cook? What if they had stuck with Andy Dalton instead of Dak Prescott? What if they had just gotten rid of Dak and said Trey Lance is our guy? The Cowboys wouldn't be a playoff team with those situations. When you look at the Dallas Cowboys, that's an organization that over the 30 years, if the equation was the Dallas Cowboys were up here winning Super Bowls and doing great things, and then Dak Prescott started, and we're now down here, that we stepped off, that we got worse, then I'd say, yeah, you look at it. Yeah, here's the track record. Here's where they were doing great things, and Dak Prescott came along, and then they just went downhill. That's a rational argument. But when you look at the Cowboys in the 30 years and 7 head coaches that the Cowboys have had since Jimmy Johnson, you look at that and say, you've got 3 years of 5-11. 3 years of 5-11. You got 3 years of complete mediocrity of 8-8, 8-8, 8-8. And then when Jason Garrett did turn around, you'd have one good year, you have a bad year, you get a good year, and then a bad year. When you look at it, this is the Dallas Cowboys franchise right here, and then they get Dak Prescott, and they're up here. You literally have taken a team that was really bad, that got a little bit better, and they've now elevated to a higher height. And at this point, where it's finally getting better, where at least you're consistently a playoff team, consistently at least every other year winning the division and having an opportunity, now's the time you want to say, just get rid of everything, start all over. That does not make sense. Doesn't make sense. And looking at the situation where the Cowboys are versus the Cleveland Browns, the Cowboys actually have got cornerstone pieces on a franchise. The Cowboys' problem is the kind of problem that you want to have. Would you rather be the Giants that don't have to worry about paying guys because they suck? Because their draft picks are bust? People look at it and say, oh my God, you're going to have to pay Tyler Smith next year. He's an all-pro. Oh my God, you got to pay CeeDee Lamb. He's, it's a terrible. No, it's not a terrible thing. Not when you have teams that are out there paying a king's ransom to try and get those kinds of players. But go on, ESPN.
It's away from being an unrestricted free agent where all these things. We're in a market. There's not that many good quarterbacks in the National Football League. And you mean to tell me a guy in Dak Prescott who's who's one of the top 10 best quarterbacks that we have in the game is going to be on the open market for anybody to bid on? I mean, it's hard for me to wrap my mind around.
Right.
And I do not expect it. Once we get to playing games, I don't expect any type of contract negotiation to go on. It's going to be all about football at that point.
No, it shouldn't. But Greeny's point is an important one, which is you are hoping that you're going to tap dance on that sentimentality, that history, those years together, those 8 years of and then also the future, what it means. That's what Jerry has. I don't know.
Where has it got Dak? When we ultimately,
Listen, let me tell you right now.
it's gotten him to be a very rich man, but when we talk about the legacy of Dak Prescott, where has that gotten him in Dallas?
Listen, let me tell you, if I was Todd France, he's not picking up a pen. I'm not picking up my phone. I will talk to you later when I talk to all these other teams. However,
I'm telling
Dak
you.
Prescott may see Aikman, may feel like this is home, this is where I want to be, and that is what Jerry will actually hope for.
I'm going to save the Stephen A. because you have to hear what Stephen A. said about all of this, and we don't have time for the appropriate reaction to it in this moment, and we will get to it. But Harry, I will throw that thought to you. I think what Jerry Jones is counting on is the fact that if indeed, when this season comes to an end, let's just live in a world where he doesn't get a deal done before the year, which feels unlikely, that if all the different teams come in and they're all offering him roughly the same thing, that Dak will choose to stay there because there is value in the star, there are no state taxes in Texas, all those things. He's counting on the fact that if he wants to keep Dak one way or another, he will be able to. That's what he's depending on, in my view, Harry.
Yeah, and Jerry's delusional, and every time he talks, I make sure I have Excedrin or goody powder around me because I get a damn headache because I don't understand half of what he's even talking about most of the time. But I would say this. What we've seen, and I'm going to use Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns as an example. You're going to have a team out there that's desperate. Desperate for what? A quarterback that's needed in the National Football League. So when I look at the Giants, when I look at the Raiders, when I look at potentially the New Orleans Saints, all it takes is one team to give Dak Prescott everything that he's asking for him to be gone. So Jerry can play that game if he want to, but he better go back to that preseason game where Trey Lance threw 5 interceptions and realize that he has a franchise quarterback, and after this season, give the man what he wants.
Right. Yeah.
Here's my thing. Here, again, all of this stuff is opinionated, okay? So Drew, Eagle fan, because I know you're watching. I know you Eagle fans can't help but watching, okay? When I say coordinators, when you change coordinators, it does slow you down. It takes time to implement a new system. Now, that doesn't mean that is the only rule. It does. Sometimes it ends up being a change is just needed. Because you could look and say, we had Mike Nolan with the worst defense in the history of the Cowboys. You know, Dan Quinn comes in, changes it up, and they get a little bit better. But more times than not, it takes time to get things going. That's what happened last year with the Texas Coast offense, even though they kept about 70% of the offense. Cowboys' first 5 games of the season looked inept on offense. The second half of the season, the Cowboys were on fire until the Green Bay Packers. And so with your whole premise of, you know, your Cowboys defense is not going to be great because we changed, you know, coordinators. Yeah, that's possible. But the thing I will say is we didn't change 2 coordinators. You changed offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator 2 years in a row. So now you got guys that are learning maybe their third system in 3 years. I will say that Mike Zimmer, being a seasoned coach, understands doing the 3-4 and the 4-3 and is experienced enough to be able to basically be able to take the guys and say, here's what I know that you do well, and here's how I can make it work around it. As opposed to, here's my system, you guys have to learn this. Be that as it may. I look at it from the standpoint of, if we're talking about the Cowboys saying, we'll give you $55 million, or let's say 55.5 and make you the highest paid right now. And you seeing that the Cowboys, for once, this is me just looking and thinking, when it came to linebackers, for example, last year, we were very, very thin in training camp. We were relying on a rookie and a guy who had a bad neck. We lose the rookie in training camp and we say, it's okay, we're all right. They ended up, one of their linebackers, they put him on waivers. And then Van Der Esch gets hurt. That's when they started looking for a linebacker to replace him. And that's one of the reasons why, Drew, I will say, the fact that by the end of the season, a season that I believe we beat you 33-9, that not having real linebackers, taking a safety that's 207 pounds and thinking that he's going to be good at stopping the run, when you had a problem on the defensive line is going to hurt you. From the simple fact that now the Cowboys recognize we need depth as well. We need good players, but we need other ones to step in. And they've done the same thing on the defensive line. If more than anything else, the thing that the Cowboys have done is we've got depth. You can say what you want about the Cowboys running game with Zeke Elliott, and he's old, and that Dalvin Cook's old, and so on. The Cowboys had the 14th rated running game. We rushed for 1,600 yards last year. Tony Pollard just got to 1,000, and he was about 1.5 yards less per carry. He was not a run between the tackle guys. And even with that offensive line kind of not being great run blockers and not being great rushing attempts, being mediocre, the Cowboys still were the highest scoring offense in the NFL. They were. So you look at this and say, if you're Dak Prescott, am I better off getting $5 million more to go to the New York Giants that don't have a good offensive line, that don't have a running game, that literally are going to have to start over from scratch? Do I want to go to that situation? Here it is where I have at times had to wear a boot on my foot. Do I want to run for my life there and not have a CeeDee Lamb? And not have the Dallas Cowboys organization? When I could be in Dallas with this young, studded offensive line. Because now you'll be looking at Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe going to the second year with 2 all-pro guards and an all-pro wide receiver and an emerging tight end. And, of course, the marketing machine that is the Dallas Cowboys. Am I better off leaving that to go to the Raiders with another eccentric owner and seeing how many quarterbacks' careers have gone there to die to play with the Raiders, uproot my family and everything else? Am I better off going there for an extra $5 million? So that may be the thing that people look at and think the only thing that he is looking for is money. Well, money is respect too. But you look at the situation, and that's where I think what Jerry Jones is doing now ultimately is to say, okay, Dak, we've effed around. We've effed around for years. We didn't do as much as we should have. Let's get this shit together. Dalvin Cook, I got to say, Dalvin Cook and Zeke Elliott, even at their advanced age, to me, at the moment, I don't think our running game is any worse than it was last year. I don't. In fact, I look at it and say, one of the problems we've had in running is by the end of the year, we're worn down. One year we had Tony Pollard with the plantar fasciitis, and we had Zeke Elliott with the PCL injury, and then the next year he had the hyperextended knee, that by the time you got to the playoffs, your running backs were getting like 25 yards in the games. What the Cowboys at least seem like they've done, or Jerry Jones has done, is say, we're going to go ahead and we're going to try and get the biggest bang for our buck. And we're going to get some depth. We're not going to be in a situation where we have to worry about position flex, that we're going to flex a safety in to be a linebacker. That we're going to take, an edge rusher and say he's a tackle and he's going to have to play some one technique. They decided we got some guys, some head bangers that are big bodies to play run stuffers. Now, we'll see how all this works out. In my mind, I think the Cowboys are a better team than they were. But of course, I'm just a guy in my basement who has to do all the research and all the work here on the Joe Boo Sports Report. But I appreciate each and every one of you guys that are here and part of the show. Appreciate you. Peace out.
Holmes here, and as always, I want to thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report.